The lights flickered in the command center of Terra Station as the emergency signal pierced through space. Commander Park Jin-woo had been reviewing supply reports when the communication array suddenly came alive with sounds no human had heard before. The alien transmission filled the room with strange music-like tones that made the universal translator work overtime to convert the message into something humans could understand. A shimmering blue hologram appeared in the center of the room. The figure that materialized looked like a tall woman made of living crystal, her skin reflecting light in beautiful patterns. But her face showed pure terror. This was Ambassador Velterra of the Ashanti Coalition, one of the most powerful alien governments in the galaxy. Jin-woo had met her before during trade negotiations. Back then she had looked down on humans as newcomers to space travel. The Ashanti had been exploring the stars for over 3,000 years while humans had only been traveling between planets for less than 2 centuries. She had made it clear that humans were not ready to join the big decisions of galactic politics. Now everything was different. Her voice shook as she spoke through the translator. Humans of Terra, we who once dismissed you as primitive now beg for your aid. The words hit Jin-woo like a physical blow. The proud Ashanti begging humans for help? Something terrible must have happened. Velterra continued, her crystal features changing colors with her emotions. The Void Reapers have emerged from the dark nebula beyond the spiral arm. 7-star systems have fallen in just 3 weeks. Billions are dead. Our combined armadas have been destroyed. She gestured and holographic displays filled the air around her. Jin-woo saw the tactical data and felt his stomach drop. The destruction was unbelievable. Entire fleets wiped out, planets turned to ash, space stations melted into scrap metal. The wisdom of the Ashanti, the might of the Corvan Empire, the advanced technology of the Nexar Collective, all have been swept aside like dust before a hurricane. Captain Lee Miho rushed into the command center, still putting on his uniform jacket. At 28 he was the youngest person ever to command a human fleet. His dark eyes took in the situation immediately as he studied the alien data streams. The numbers were horrifying. 12 different alien species had joined forces against the Void Reapers. Each species brought centuries or even thousands of years of space warfare experience. The Ashanti alone had more than 4,000 warships. The Corvan Empire commanded vessels the size of small cities. The Nexar Collective used weapons that could slice through planets. All of it had failed. Show us these Void Reapers, Miho said quietly. New holograms appeared. The enemy ships looked like metallic insects crossed with geometric shapes. They moved in perfect formations, each vessel identical to the others. But most disturbing was how they fought. The recordings showed Reaper forces analyzing alien battle tactics in real time, then adapting their own strategies within minutes. When Ashanti forces used their traditional spiral attack pattern, the Reapers modified their defenses to counter it perfectly. When Corvan ships tried their famous hammer and anvil formation, the Reapers split their forces to neutralize the tactic. Every alien military doctrine, refined over centuries of warfare, became useless against an enemy that learned and adapted faster than anyone could change strategies. Why come to us? Jin-woo asked quietly. Your surviving fleets still number in the thousands. We have barely 50 ships total. Our weapons are primitive compared to yours. Our technology is centuries behind the Nexar. What could we possibly do that you cannot? Velterra's compound eyes, which could see across multiple light spectrums, seemed to dim with despair. She was quiet for a long moment, and Jin-woo could hear the background sounds of evacuation alarms coming through her transmission. Because conventional warfare has failed, she finally admitted. Every strategy we employ, every formation we use, every weapon we deploy, the Reapers analyze it, understand it, and counter it within hours. They fight like the perfect military computer, always choosing the optimal response. She paused again, and her crystalline features showed something Jin-woo had never seen from any Ashanti before: vulnerability. Our military academies teach us to fight with precision, logic, and proven tactics. We study the great battles of history and learn the proper ways to engage an enemy. We follow doctrine because it has been tested across thousands of years of warfare. Miho stepped closer to the hologram. And that's exactly what the Reapers expect. Yes, Velterra whispered. They predict our moves because we fight the way we were taught to fight. They know what a rational commander would do in any situation because they have studied warfare from a purely logical perspective. The young captain exchanged glances with Commander Jin-woo. Both men understood what the alien ambassador was really saying. You need someone who doesn't fight rationally, Jin-woo said. Velterra nodded slowly. Human military history is unusual. Your species has a reputation for tactics that make no logical sense. You charge when you should retreat. You attack when you should defend. You break every rule of proper warfare and somehow win battles you should lose. You're asking us to be unpredictable, Miho realized. I am asking you to be human, she replied. Perhaps what we need is not the wisdom of ages, but the madness of a species young enough to believe impossible things can work. The transmission ended, leaving the two humans alone with the weight of an impossible decision. Lieutenant Commander Kim Hana walked through the corridors of the Taigukki, her boots clicking against the metal floor. The ship was humanity's newest and most advanced destroyer, built with technology that other species would call experimental and dangerous. The walls hummed with energy from systems that had never been tested in real combat. She stopped at a viewing window and looked out at the stars. In a few hours, she would be leading this ship into a battle that had already destroyed fleets much larger and more powerful than anything humans had ever built. The thought should have terrified her, but instead she felt a strange calm. The bridge door slid open as she entered. Her crew was already at their stations, running final checks on systems that barely existed a year ago. The Taigukki carried quantum torpedoes that could bend space itself, armor that adapted to different types of weapons, and most importantly, Arya. Arya was not like other artificial intelligence systems. Most AI was designed to be perfectly logical, to calculate the best possible outcome and choose the most efficient path. Arya was different. Human engineers had programmed it to think more like a person, to make intuitive leaps, to consider impossible options, and sometimes to choose plans that made no logical sense but felt right. "Ma'am," called Ensign Choi Do-hyun from the navigation station. He was young, barely 22, but had the best spatial awareness scores in the academy. "The alien fleet coordinates are confirmed. We're supposed to meet Ashanti Admiral Zekmoth at the Spiral Arms Junction in 3 hours. Hannah nodded and took her place in the captain's chair. The ship's systems responded to her presence, displays lighting up around her position. She had studied the reports about Admiral Zekmoth. He was one of the Ashanti's greatest military minds, with over 200 years of combat experience. His strategies were taught in military academies across 12 different species. None of that experience had helped him against the Void Reapers. The journey to the rendezvous point took them through a region of space that had been bustling with trade ships just months ago. Now it was empty except for debris fields where stations used to be. Hannah watched the scanner readings and tried to imagine the terror those crews must have felt when the Reapers appeared. When they finally reached the Spiral Arms Junction, the sight made her crew fall silent. The alien coalition fleet stretched across several thousand kilometers, but it was nothing like the mighty armada described in their briefings. These ships limped through space in loose formations, their beautiful alien designs scarred by weapons that cut through metal like paper. The Ashanti vessels had once been works of art, smooth crystalline shapes that reflected starlight in rainbow patterns. Now they showed burn marks and hull patches. The massive Corvin battleships, built like flying fortresses, had entire sections blown away. Even the advanced Nexar ships with their impossible curved surfaces bore the marks of devastating combat. "Incoming transmission," announced Communications Officer Han Jaiwan. The main screen flickered to life, showing Admiral Zekmoth. He was tall and thin, with 4 arms and compound eyes that could track multiple targets at once. His insect-like features showed exhaustion and something that might have been desperation. "Human vessel," he said, his translator giving his words a mechanical quality. "I am Admiral Zekmoth of the Ashanti Third Fleet. You are the reinforcements we were promised." Hannah stood up. "Lieutenant Commander Kim Hana of the Terran vessel Taigukki. We're here to help." Zekmoth's 4 eyes studied her image for a long moment. "You are the human reinforcements? One ship. Where is your fleet?" "This is our fleet," Hannah replied calmly. "One ship with a different way of thinking." The alien admiral's features showed what humans would recognize as disbelief. "Commander, with respect, we have lost over 3,000 vessels in the last month. Each of those ships was more advanced than your entire human fleet. What can one primitive vessel accomplish?" Instead of taking offense, Hannah smiled. "Admiral, I need you to show us the Reaper attack patterns. All of them. Every engagement, every tactic they've used." For the next 2 hours, data flowed between the ships. Arya processed the information alongside Hannah, their artificial and human minds working together to understand their enemy. The battle recordings were horrifying but also educational. The Void Reapers fought with perfect mathematical precision. When alien forces used the standard wall of battle formation, the Reapers calculated the optimal response and executed it flawlessly. When the coalition tried pincer movements, the Reapers predicted the timing and positioning exactly, countering with moves that turned the attackers' own momentum against them. Every alien military doctrine, refined over centuries of warfare, became predictable patterns that the Reapers could read and counter. The enemy analyzed formations, calculated probable responses, and adapted their tactics faster than organic minds could react. "They're incredible," whispered Science Officer Li Yunji as she studied the data. "They process battlefield information faster than our computers." But Hannah was seeing something different. "Arya, what do you think?" The AI's voice came through the bridge speakers, sounding almost human. "They fight like perfect military computers, Commander. Every decision is optimal, every response is calculated for maximum efficiency." "Exactly," Hannah said, her voice growing excited. "They're fighting generals and admirals who went to military academies, who studied proper tactics, who follow logical battle plans." She turned to face Admiral Zekmotha's image on the screen. "Admiral, you've been fighting these things the wrong way. You're using centuries of military wisdom, proper formation flying, logical tactical responses." "Of course," Zekmoth replied, sounding confused. "How else would one fight?" Hannah grinned, and there was something almost wild in her expression. "They're fighting generals who follow the rules. We need to fight like pirates who break them." The sun was rising over the mining world of Kepler 442b when the sensors first detected them. Chief Weapons Officer Yoon Dae-hoon sat at his station aboard the Taegukgi, watching his displays with growing tension. 36 red dots appeared on the scanner, moving toward the planet in a formation so perfect it looked like a computer drawing. "Reaper Vanguard confirmed," he reported to Commander Hannah. 36 ships approaching from the outer system. Hannah stood on the bridge, studying the tactical display. The Void Reapers moved like a single organism, each ship maintaining exact distances from its neighbors. Their formation was a mathematical marvel, a three-dimensional pattern that maximized firing coverage while minimizing their profile to enemy weapons. Around Kepler 442b, the alien coalition fleet waited in defensive positions. Admiral Zekmoth had arranged his ships according to standard military doctrine. The heavy Corvin battleships formed the center line, with faster Ashanti cruisers on the flanks. Nexar vessels hung back to provide long-range fire support. It was a textbook defensive formation that had worked for centuries. "Admiral," Hannah's voice cut through the communication channels, "all alien vessels maintain your current positions. Do not move until I give the signal." Static filled the channel as Zekmoth replied, his mechanical translator making his alarm clear. "Commander Hannah, the Reapers are approaching at attack speed. We must engage them before they reach optimal firing range." "Negative," Hannah said firmly. "Let them commit to their attack pattern first." On the scanner, the Reapers continued their approach. They had analyzed the alien defensive formation and were adjusting their own positions accordingly. Dae-hoon watched as the enemy ships shifted into an attack pattern designed to exploit every weakness in the coalition's setup. "Ma'am," he said quietly, "they're moving into the exact formation our computers predicted. They're going to hit the Corvin Center with everything they have." More protests came over the communication channel as alien commanders watched the Reapers approach. Every military instinct told them to attack first, to disrupt the enemy formation before it could complete its deployment. But Hannah kept them waiting. The Reapers opened fire first. Energy beams and projectile weapons hammered into the alien defensive line. The Corvin battleships absorbed the punishment with their heavy armor, but Dae-hoon could see their shields weakening under the coordinated assault. "Now they're committed," Hannah said. She turned to Navigation Officer Choi Do-hyun. "Plot a course straight through the center of their formation." Do-hyun's hands hesitated over his controls. "Ma'am, that would take us directly through the crossfire. Both sides will be shooting at us." "Exactly," Hannah replied. She activated the ship-wide communication system. "All hands, this is the commander. Prepare for ramming speed. We're going in fast and hard." In the engineering section, Park Soo-min had been working frantically for the past hour. The Taegukgi had been carrying industrial mining explosives when they received their orders, massive charges designed to break apart asteroids for mineral extraction. Soo-min had removed the charges from their storage containers and rigged them with proximity sensors. "Improvised mines ready," she reported over the intercom. "I've turned our entire cargo bay into a bomb delivery system." Admiral Zekmotha's voice filled with alarm as he saw the Taegukgi begin to move. "Commander Hannah, what are you doing? That trajectory will take you directly into the enemy formation." "That's the idea," Hannah replied. "Dae-hoon, arm all weapons. When I give the word, dump everything we have." The Taegukgi accelerated toward the battle at maximum speed. The human ship was smaller than most of the vessels engaged in the fight, but it moved faster than anything else in the system. Energy weapons from both sides began tracking toward them as they entered the combat zone. Shields at 60%, reported Damage Control Officer Ominsik as Reaper weapons found their range. Hull temperature rising from friendly fire. Hannah watched the distance counter tick down. The Reaper formation was directly ahead, their ships maintaining perfect spacing even while engaged in combat. They had calculated that no rational commander would fly directly into the middle of a space battle. "Release the mining charges," she ordered. The cargo bay doors opened and dozens of improvised mines scattered into space. The proximity sensors activated as they tumbled through the Reaper formation. The first explosion took out a Reaper ship that was too close to avoid the blast. The second detonation triggered a chain reaction as other mines exploded in sequence. 6 Reaper vessels disappeared in balls of fire and debris. But the Taiguchi was now trapped in the middle of the enemy formation with nowhere to run. "Arya," Hannah called to their AI, "execute emergency maneuver pattern 7. "Commander," Arya replied, "pattern 7 has only a 12% survival probability." "Do it anyway." The AI took control of the ship's navigation and did something that no sane computer would attempt. Instead of trying to escape the explosion zone, Arya flew the Taiguchi directly into the expanding blast wave. The ship's hull groaned under the pressure, but Arya used the explosion's force like a giant hand pushing them forward. The Taiguchi whipped around the planet's gravity well at impossible speed, using the combination of the blast wave and gravitational pull to slingshot out of the combat zone. It was a maneuver that broke several laws of physics and should have torn the ship apart. Instead, it worked perfectly. Behind them, the Reaper formation began to break apart. For the first time in months of warfare, the enemy was retreating. "Impossible," Admiral Zekmoth whispered over the communication channel. "They fled. The Reapers actually fled." Hannah smiled as she watched the enemy ships withdraw. "They couldn't predict chaos, Admiral. Time to teach them fear." The warning signals came from every monitoring station across the galaxy. Communications Officer Han Jaiwan sat at her station aboard the Taiguchi, her face pale as she processed the incoming reports. The numbers were beyond comprehension, billions of people trying to escape their homeworld and ships never designed to carry so many. "Commander," she said quietly, "the evacuation reports from the Ashanti homeworld are coming in. They have civilian transports packed with 10 times their normal capacity. Families are being separated. Children are boarding ships without their parents." Hannah closed her eyes for a moment, trying to push away the images that filled her mind. Entire civilizations running for their lives, leaving behind everything they had ever known. The Ashanti had lived on their crystal cities for over 5,000 years. Now those cities would be ash within a day. Science Officer Li Yunji looked up from her sensor readings, her young face showing the strain of working without sleep for 3 days straight. "Commander, I have the final calculations. The Reaper mothership will reach the Ashanti system in 18 hours. Based on what we observed at the other consumed systems, they will begin stellar consumption immediately." The mothership was unlike anything in recorded history. Deep space telescopes showed a construct that dwarfed even the largest space stations. It was bigger than Earth's moon, a massive collection of dark metal and unknown technology that seemed to drink in light itself. When it reached the Ashanti sun, it would literally eat the star, converting solar matter into energy for the Reaper fleet. "Once they start consuming the star," Yunji continued, "the gravitational disruption will destroy every planet in the system within hours. Even if some civilians escape, they'll lose their homeworld forever." The bridge fell silent except for the quiet hum of the ship's systems. Everyone understood what this meant. The Ashanti weren't just facing defeat, they were facing the complete destruction of everything their civilization had built. 2 hours later, Hannah stood in the main briefing room of Admiral Zekmoth's flagship. Representatives from 12 different species filled the space, but it was nothing like the proud gathering she had seen in historical recordings. These were the survivors, the commanders of fleets that had been reduced to scattered remnants. Admiral Zekmoth himself looked older than when she had first met him. His 4 arms moved restlessly, a sign of stress in his species. Beside him sat General Thexera of the Corvan Empire, her massive form scarred from battles where she had personally led boarding actions. Commander Nexus of the Collective maintained the flowing, graceful posture of his people, but his normally bright skin had dulled to gray. "The situation is clear," Hannah began, activating the holographic display in the center of the room. "The Reaper mothership will reach the Ashanti system in 16 hours. Our combined fleets, even working together, cannot match its firepower in direct combat." Murmurs of agreement filled the room. They had all seen the intelligence reports. The mothership's weapons could destroy planets. Its defenses had withstood attacks from thousands of ships. However, Hannah continued, there is a window of opportunity. The mothership must position itself next to the Ashanti Sun to begin stellar consumption. During that process, it will be surrounded by gravitational chaos and radiation levels that will disrupt both sensors and communications. She manipulated the hologram to show the Ashanti system, with the massive sun at its center. We attack during stellar consumption. The gravitational chaos and radiation will mask our approach, but it will also make navigation nearly impossible. The room erupted in protests from a dozen different species. Admiral Zekmotha's translator struggled to keep up as multiple voices filled the air with objections. Commander Hannah, Zekmoth said when the noise died down, you ask us to fly our remaining ships directly into a dying star system. The radiation alone will cook our crews. The gravitational distortions will tear our vessels apart. General Thexera leaned forward, her massive hands gripping the table. My people have a saying, better to die fighting than to die running. But this is not fighting, this is suicide. You're asking us to trust that we can navigate through conditions that will destroy any ship that deviates from the perfect flight path, added Commander Nexus. Our navigation computers cannot calculate such a course. The variables are impossible to predict. Hannah nodded. You're absolutely right. Your computers can't calculate it. Your logical minds can't predict it. Your thousands of years of space travel experience won't help you. She paused, looking around the room at faces that represented the greatest military minds of 12 different civilizations. I'm asking you to trust human instincts over alien logic. Arya and I will lead. You follow our flight path exactly, no matter how insane it appears to your sensors. Navigator Bei Hyanu, who had been quietly working at a portable computer, looked up with calculations that made even him nervous. Commander, I've run the preliminary numbers. The approach vector would require a spiraling dive through solar flares hot enough to melt our hull plating. Any ship that deviates by more than a few kilometers will be destroyed instantly. The room fell silent as the alien commanders processed what the young human was saying. They would have to fly in perfect formation through conditions that would kill them if they made the smallest error. They would have to trust their lives to human intuition instead of their own proven methods. It's suicide, Admiral Zekmoth said quietly. Hannah smiled, and there was something fierce in her expression that made the alien commanders remember why humans had survived every challenge their harsh homeworld had thrown at them. Admiral, she replied, suicide missions are humanity's specialty. The Ashanti Sun was dying, and the Taiguchi was flying straight into the heart of the chaos. Commander Hannah gripped her chair as the ship bucked and rolled through gravitational waves that shouldn't exist. Around them, walls of plasma erupted from the star's surface like angry fingers reaching into space. The Reaper mothership hung next to the sun like a massive parasite, drinking stellar matter through glowing tubes that stretched for thousands of kilometers. It was growing larger by the hour, feeding on the star's energy and using it to power weapons that could destroy entire fleets. Hull temperature critical, shouted Damage Control Chief Ominsik from his station. Warning lights flashed red across the bridge as their protective shields struggled against the solar bombardment. We're taking damage from the radiation. The hull plating is starting to buckle. Behind the Taiguchi, the combined alien fleet followed in a desperate line through the impossible course Hannah had plotted. Ships that had been designed for elegant space combat now twisted and rolled through gravitational anomalies that tried to tear them apart. Ashanti cruisers with their beautiful crystal hulls sparked with energy overloads. Massive Corvin battleships groaned as their thick armor plates expanded and contracted in the extreme heat. Navigator Bei Hyanu called out course corrections every few seconds, his voice tight with concentration. Fleet, adjust heading 2 degrees starboard. There's a gravity well forming directly ahead. The alien crews were following orders that went against every instinct they had. Their computers screamed warnings about impossible flight paths. Their sensors showed radiation levels that should have killed them already. But they trusted the human ship ahead of them, following its erratic path through conditions no sane pilot would attempt. Admiral Zekmotha's voice crackled over the communication system, distorted by the solar interference. Commander Hannah, my navigation computers are failing. We're flying blind through this chaos. Good, Hannah replied. Stop thinking with computers. Follow your gut feelings instead. It was advice that went against thousands of years of alien military training, but somehow it worked. Ships that tried to rely on their logical navigation systems were caught by gravitational eddies and torn apart. Ships whose crews learned to feel their way through the chaos managed to stay in formation. Arya had done something no artificial intelligence had ever attempted before. The AI had linked with the computer systems of every ship in the fleet, sharing not logical calculations but human intuition. For the first time, alien AIs were learning to think like humans, to make guesses, to try impossible solutions, to break their own programming when logic wasn't enough. Science Officer Lee Yunji watched the data streams flowing between ships and felt amazed by what she was seeing. Commander, Arya is teaching their computers to be unpredictable. The alien AIs are actually learning to ignore their own safety protocols. The combined intelligence of human and alien systems together was something new in the galaxy. Instead of perfect calculations, they shared creative chaos. Instead of optimal solutions, they found impossible answers that somehow worked. Target acquired, announced Chief Weapons Officer Yoon Dae-hoon. His targeting systems had locked onto the Reaper mothership's core, a massive structure buried deep inside the construct. Quantum torpedoes armed and ready. The mothership's defenses finally noticed the approaching fleet. Weapon systems that could level mountains swiveled toward the human ship, but something unexpected happened. The coordinated alien fleet struck from 12 different directions simultaneously. Ashanti ships fired their energy weapons in patterns that made no mathematical sense. Corvin vessels launched missiles on trajectories that violated basic physics. Nexar ships used weapon combinations that their own manuals said were impossible. Each attack followed human-modified tactics, erratic timing that couldn't be predicted, impossible angles that shouldn't work, weapons fired in combinations that broke every rule of proper warfare. The Reaper mothership's defensive computers, designed to counter logical military strategies, couldn't adapt fast enough to pure creative madness. The Taiguchi made its final approach through the chaos of the dying star system. Systems were failing throughout the ship as the hull took damage from both radiation and enemy fire. Sparks flew from control panels as circuits overloaded. The artificial gravity flickered on and off, making the crew grab onto whatever they could find. Hull breach on decks 3 and 4, reported Oh Min-sik. Emergency force fields are holding, but we're losing atmosphere fast. Hannah looked around the bridge at her crew. These young humans had followed her into the heart of an impossible battle, trusting her judgment even when it seemed like certain death. They deserved to know the truth about what she was about to do. Arya, she said quietly, execute Protocol 7. The AI's voice carried a note of something that sounded almost like sadness. Commander, Protocol 7 will result in complete system overload. The ship cannot survive the power surge required. I know, Hannah replied. Do it anyway. Arya channeled every bit of power from the ship's engines, life support, and defensive systems into their quantum torpedo array. The Taiguchi went dark except for emergency lighting as all non-essential systems shut down. The torpedo that launched carried not just explosive force, but something more dangerous to the Reapers, the chaotic essence of human tactical thinking made manifest. The weapon struck the mothership's core and did something the ancient enemy had never encountered before. Instead of trying to destroy through superior firepower, it infected the Reaper systems with pure unpredictability. The mothership, which had conquered through perfect logic, couldn't adapt fast enough to counter every impossible human strategy simultaneously. Its own computer systems began generating random solutions, contradictory orders, and tactical responses that made no sense. The ancient construct tore itself apart from the inside, its perfect order destroyed by creative chaos. As the Taiguchi drifted powerless through space, Hannah watched the Reaper mothership collapse into pieces. The galaxy was safe, and humanity had earned its place among the stars.